In this section, we'll be looking into the primitive object and the editable mesh. Let's take a look how to create an object. This is the icon that you can choose different objects to create. So hold down your left key, you'll be able to call out this pop-up panel, and inside this pop-up panel, you'll be able to pick and choose the object that you want to create. So let's take a look at the cube. Click onto the cube, you will be able to see there's this cube layers over here. And at the bottom here, it will reveal by default is object. And basic is the basic informations. Coordinate, if let's say you want to animate, you can animate under the coordinate panels. And now we take a look at the object. So there's this object properties. You will be able to scale the size by dragging the numbers. Or you can drag from the yellow points over here for the X size and the Z size and your Y. So this is how you play around with the scaling. I return it back to 200 times 200 times 200, the cube. So now take a look at the segment. Right now it's 1, 1, and 1. We can increase my X segment into 7. However, you cannot see the segment yet. This is because of our display setting. So let's go into the display at the viewport here. You'll be able to see that there's this ground shading with lines, quick shading, constant shading with lines, and hidden lines and lines. So basically, if let's say you want to look into a proper rendering of the object in the preview panel, you can choose ground shading. If your model is heavy and you want to have a quicker shading, you can go into quick shading, and constant shading is something that it will make everything to become flat. So let's take a look at the quick shading with lines. Now you will be able to see that the segment. So you can choose 5, 5, and 5, and this is the segment of your cube. Now let's take a look. There's this fillet over here. I'm scrolling my middle mouse to get closer or to zoom in. Another way to do that will be hold down your alternate key and your right click, you will be able to zoom it in and out. Let's take a look at the fillet. Right now I have the fillet, and this fillet radius is 3 cm. And this is the segment of it, the subdivision of it. There's 3 subdivision over here. So you can increase the radius so that it looks more bulky, or decrease it to look more sleek. Now I increase it. Right now you will see that the segment is not enough. You can adjust the subdivision from here. So once you take a look at here, the side is curved nicely and we have enough segments for it. And this is the object mode. And for primitive object, you couldn't change the position of the anchor point, or we call it axis in Cinema 4D. So you can take a look at this. If I enable the axis, if I want to move it, the whole object will be moving together with the axis. Let's take a look into another primitive object. Let's cross this and take a look into maybe a tube. If you take a look at here, there's one more thing inside tube or inside cylinder, which is slice. So once you click into the slice and you activate it, you will be able to see that right now your tube is not full. So you can play around with the size that you are looking for. You can go back to the object and you can add the fillet. Right now the fillet only covers the top and the bottom. However, the slice is not covered. So this is the attributes for primitive object. The good things with primitive object is that you can always change the segment to make a smoother models, even if you add in texture lightings and stuff like that. Let's get back to the cube without any fillet, and we can turn this into a mesh. We still want to remain this primitive. I need to show you the difference. So when you click on this, you can hold down Ctrl C and Ctrl V to duplicate your layer. So this one at the bottom here, we need to change it to the mesh. And on the top one, we don't want to view it. We can just click onto this cross. Right click onto the cube.1 layer and go all the way down to make editable. So once I click onto make editable, the icon changed. Once it turns into polygon shape, it is an editable mesh. If this is in a cube shape, which means this is still primitive. If I take a look at the difference in the attributes, on this cube, you still remain the object, but for editable mesh, you will no longer have that sections for you to change things. However, your segment is remain. So now in this editable mesh, we can get into these 3 little icons over here. So this is like for a selection. You can click onto these polygons, and right now you can click onto the polygons to select the specific polygons that you want. And you can always hold down Shift and click to pick and choose the polygon that you want. You can hold down Control to deselect one by one. So for this second one, this is edge. You can hold down Shift to select the edge. You can hold down Control to deselect the edge. Same goes to the dots. Some of us, we call it points. Some of us, we call it vertex. So it depends on what are the terms that you are using. They are the same stuff. This is the selection tool. We call it live selection. If you click on this live selection, you will be able to see that this attributes visible only is checked, meaning that I can select all the points that I want by hold down my left key. I just holding down and drag along the cube to select all the points. So you can increase the selection size so that it's easier for you. So what if I deselect this visible only? When I start to select my points, it will go all the way to the back because it penetrates to the back to select all the points that we have around this area, be it in front or at the back. Same goes to shapes as well. So this is the selection tool for selecting polygons, edge, and points. Now take a look what we can do with editable mesh. Let's select one of the polygon and right click. You'll be able to see that there's this column. These are the things that you can play around with. Let's take a look at the bevel. Select the bevel and you will see that right now my arrow key, there is this bevel icon, small little icon beside my arrow key. So you can click on the left click and hold down and drag. You'll be able to see that you get this bevel design out. And right now you can play around with the extrusion over here. You can extrude more. So now you'll be able to have this extrude with bevels. So if let's say you want to have this extrude only, you can click onto the extrude and the icon change. You can hold down your left key and drag to the right, drag to the left, you go in. So you can drag to the right to extrude it out. With this selected, you can always play around with the offset. What are the offsets that you want and subdivision, how much subdivision that you are looking for. Right click also and you can try what inset is. So let's take a look at inset and still the same, hold down your left key and click on it and hold, push to the left, it decrease the size, push to the right, it increase the size. So right now you can have this inset and you can right click again to extrude and do the same thing again. And this is what you can get for your model. So this is the difference between bevel, extrude, and insert. And let's take a look at the last one. Click onto the matrix extrude. Still the same. Click onto the left click and hold down. And to the right. You will be able to see that there's this matrix extrude. So if let's say I select few polygons over here and I hold down, I can get the same extrudes as this one. So with this polygon selected, you can always play around with the steps. Maybe you want to reduce the step, or you can play around with the rotation, how much you want to rotate it, or how much you want to scale it. Are you scaling it XYZ consistently, or you just want to scale one side? And you can move it around, whether you want to move it up or move it down. So the moving is basically the polygons how you want to move it. So this is the rotation. So that's how you can play around with the bevel extrude and matrix extrude over here. So now let's take a look. What if we want to divide the segment more? So let's right click and we can choose line cut, and you can always cut the polygons in this way. Or if let's say you want to finish it up, you can always go and click on the selection tool, then you will get the path like this. So let me have another type of cut. For example, I want to cut from here to the bottom. I can hold down shift to the bottom, all the way to the bottom, and I click onto my move tool as well. If I want to merge them back together, this is what we can do it. We can go to the edge and we can select the edge and right click. There are two things here you can merge it back. One is melt, another one is dissolve. Let's take a look at the melt. Once we click onto the melt and we get into the vertex, it will remain the points on the edge here. Even though this is already one polygon, but the points is still remain. If let's say we select the edge and we right click, go to dissolve, by the time we select vertex or points, the points is disappear. So this is the difference between melt and dissolve. So if let's say we want to have another type of cut, which means we want to loop it, or we want to have a path cut. So how can we do that? We can go back to edge again and right click, and there is this loop or path cut. So we can click onto the loop or path cut, and now you can select, you can move along the edge wherever you want. So right now maybe I want to have the loop over here. It will calculate from left to the right over here, and this is the scale bar for it. You can add in the numbers that you like, or you can move it around before you confirm the segments. So if let's say I'm moving around on this and I want them to align properly, then I can click on this and they will distribute accordingly. So once you are done, you can click onto the move tool. So this is how you can play around with the editable mesh tool and enjoy your modeling.